whatever it costs. So he can rest assured that his personal treatment regime and his health are not an issue. Let me tell you what they did when they came into office. You know, they passed a law to say that former presidents will now be eligible only till $200,000 Guyana dollars of medical treatment expenses. Former presidents. When they're paying 10 times more for current ministers. 10 times more. But they did that. And they passed the law because of vindictiveness. The president doesn't have to worry about the application of that law to his health regime. That's one thing I can say publicly. So outside of that, he has the role of head of state and head of government. The work of the people has to go on. And so, whilst I sympathize with his position, we have a constitutional deadline to meet.
So that's my question. How long beyond March 19th?
I can't say that at this point in time, but right now there is one deadline we are working with. The deadline imposed upon this country, upon the government, all of us, by the Constitution of Guyana. The Constitution, or supreme law. And that provision was not put there by the PPP in the Constitution.
Mr. Javier, I've been saying, sir, you spoke about bribery earlier, and you yourself denied being involved in any form of bribery related to Mr. Chandas. If it is found that indeed there was some act of bribery, excluding yourself, is the PPP willing to recognize his vote as valid?
I'm not going to even go down that route because which media house you're from? Chronicle? You're from News Source. The last press conference of the year. It has been an eventful year, a year in which we've had local government elections. We've seen the passage of the budget recently and the successful passage of a no confidence motion against the government. This is on the political front. People generally, in their own Guyanese way, have sought to make do with the political environment and the economic circumstances. And our people are resilient, and many of them have made progress in the year, and many others have seen their lives deteriorated because of the policies of this government. So I want to say to all the people who have seen their circumstances change for the worse, people like sugar workers and the miners and the vendors and young people in particular. That's not an exhaustive list, but that there is hope of a better day, and that we are going to work to change these policies and reverse a lot of the policies that have seen a deterioration in their lives. I do not want to end the year too much on a gloomy picture, so I just wish that all Guyanese would have a better life in 2019, and that we can approach the matters of state in this country seriously and with maturity. Having said that, I think the government is squandering an opportunity for the discussion, dialogue, and moving forward. But to expect anything different of this government would have been naive. And so after the lofty words of the Prime Minister and the President, and the commitment to engage on a way forward, we have seen the government once again retreat into its usual arsenal, its usual tools, which is wild accusations and confrontation. These are tools that they know very well how to use. And of course, fake news, propaganda to mobilize people, particularly the APNU base, into believing that they have been wrong, having failed to mobilize people to come out in defense of the government before the National Assembly or in front of the National Assembly. So I think the president has to bear responsibility for this. We have already expressed our concern about his illness, and he has already received our best wishes. But he's still the head of state and head of government. He issued a statement before he left, one talking about moving forward, respecting the Constitution, and a commitment to engagement. And as I said before, his minions now, and I believe with his approval, have now gone in a different direction, totally different direction. So the president has to bear responsibility for this. And I want to say to all of those Guyanese who called us and say we're happy that the People's Progressive Party reached out and spoke about dialogue for the future, not just for these no confidence motion, this period, the next 3 months, but way beyond that, about how we manage the country. I want them to know now that the PPP did its bit, and they can now see how APNU has responded to this with its usual old-style politics. And so we have no alternative but to also ramp up our efforts in this regard. We have no alternative. We have been taking a different position. I've said to all of our MPs or party leadership, let's await the return of the president before we engage the government, even respond to the hostility that they have been peddling. But now that has to change. And I see this all because this is a tiny, desperate, corrupt cabal, of ministers, advisors, and friends and family who have now realized the consequences of the no confidence motion as clearly outlined in the Constitution, that they have to resign and face elections. And they have seen the writing on the wall before now, because they have been neglecting the people of this country, including ordinary APNU supporters. And so that is why we see the desperation now, and all of these arguments that defy logic about 32 versus 33 or 34, 31. These are not logical arguments. What you're seeing here is a reflection of the scared nature, the desperation of the APNU government. They're clinging on to power using anything. If someone just goes tomorrow and says Sunday is Monday and it would help them to stave off going to elections, they'll go to the court or make that argument too. So this government has lost any moral right to continue to govern our country. This is a depraved bunch of people who can sit before the country and argue that the motion has been passed, we're going to elections in 90 days, the government has to resign, and then now, a week later, make some of these most ludicrous arguments that you could ever hear about why they did that. And I'll come to that for a moment. They have lost all, they were trying to create this impression that they were democratic, local government, we return local government elections and democracy to Guyana. Well, here is the Constitution of Guyana. You have lost the no confidence motion, and you're refusing to abide by the Constitution to go back to elections. You're trying to violate, you're openly violating the Constitution in relation to people's democratic rights. And you still want to create the impression that you have democratic credentials. All of that has long gone. They're going to hang on. They're going to hang on as long as possible. And to think otherwise will be foolish in this country, knowing APNU. I knew that they're going to hang on desperately. And the more they hang on, the more desperate people will know they are. And the inevitable will stare them in the face. It is staring them in the face. No matter how long they hang on, they are going to lose the elections. And so I say to people out there who are getting worked up, stay vigilant, stay focused. Let's ensure that they respect our Constitution, but do not expect anything otherwise from the PNC. This is typical old PNC behavior. They rig the elections, now they're openly violating the Constitution. So I wanted to, before I go on further, I wanted to play a few things for the country, because they're in a PR mode now about, one, now they're saying bribery took place of Charandas. Two, they're arguing that they don't have to resign now. And three, they are spreading a series of lies in bottom house meetings and through whisper campaigns to the APNU base about the no confidence motion. So, in their own words, I want to play for you what they said at a different time. So this is Vice President Carl Greenidge. I got cut off.
Better watch what you're playing.
Right.
Better watch your voice, know what you're playing.
Actually,
In the case of a no confidence vote, the no confidence vote in the government, because it is a major issue here with the performance of the government, the behavior of the government, the breaking of the law by the government, the no confidence vote needs to be followed by the resignation of the government and the calling of national elections. Carl Greenidge.
that's Carl Greenidge. He was very explicit, resignation of the government. This is what that was in 2014. 2014 again, Ramjatan, this was what he said. That he said we offered their MPs when we were in government to
That's their option. That's the one the most low confidence. And they're trying to lie. I know that who am paying it for. The scams.
I don't need to do more. So these accusations are not new. They're not new. So let's deal first of all with the accusations of bribery. So I see somehow today, well, this has started. It started with the PNC press conference, and I've asked my lawyers to sue the individual concerned. I think it was Norton who read that PNC statement, and all the media houses that repeated the libel if they don't retract it. So that will happen over the course of the next few days. And I was extremely pleased when in the same one of the stories, because you had a balanced story, I think, in the Amara Waves, when they were asked for evidence, Norton said he didn't have to give any evidence, that that's for someone else to do, basically implying he did not have any evidence. And then Amara Waves contacted the police, and then we heard that the police said themselves, they have no evidence of this, nor no report has been made to them. So today, to my surprise, I saw a story by news source, Gordon Mosley. And Gordon Mosley in the news source said, intelligence report says that Charan Das was attempting to buy some gold. I think I have the story somewhere. I'd like to get a copy of it. Just get me a copy of it. But yes, but my point is that how did Gordon Mosley get this intelligence report? Clearly, what the government is doing, you would see Enrico Wilford on on NCN trying to PR this. Now Gordon Mosley gets from intelligence sources, gave him some information, and he puts it out. I have somebody circulating something else about Gordon Mosley himself. So, saying, hey bro, $1 million US, etc. for something else. I've seen that, how easily these things can be manufactured. You remember Basil Williams himself pointing out when there were some leaked emails. He said, that's not my email, It had an email address, but he said it's not his, it was fake. So just the country should want to find out that these deep intelligence sources that have now got to give you this is all nonsense. This is just fake news to the highest level. I don't want to, because this is a vile thing, so I don't want to share it with the media.
It's a bad word.
Yes, exactly. That's why I don't want to share it with the media. But it shows how easily things can be fabricated. Now, have you seen lunacy to the largest extent? Basil Williams is a raving lunatic. So this is, and everything I'm saying here, you just have to read the newspapers, and then people will understand. What I can't make the arguments more eloquent than the arguments that are being made against this 34-31 interpretation or issues dealing with people's status, citizenship, etc. But the key points have been made. One is that the Speaker has no power of review. It's not the Speaker who voted in Parliament. 33 members on one side voted in favor of the motion, 32 against. The Speaker reported to the House that the motion has been passed. The clerk then notified me by way of a letter, which I have, that it has been passed. So, for the Speaker to reverse this now, he has to come up with a new interpretation of what it will take, what is a majority. And I doubt that our Speaker will place his credibility at stake here. Because I think it's quite clear to every sane Guyanese that the majority contemplated in the Constitution was 33. The majority. And citing irrelevant, obscure precedents will not change that. And so the Speaker, coming back to that one, the Speaker has no power of review. The government has to resign now in accordance with Article 106.6. That's to resign. I want to say to the public officials again, you're dealing with a lame duck administration, a caretaker government. Be cautious about what instructions you take from them, because they're in 3 months' time, they will move from a caretaker status to being an illegal, illegitimate, unconstitutional government. And we made it clear to the international community and everyone whatsoever, the private sector, that at the moment that deadline passes, that any act of this government will not be recognized. Any act that is dealing with foreign countries, taking loans, getting money, etc., and locally, will not be recognized by the People's Progressive Party. You engage with them, if you pay money, if you sign contracts, at your own peril. At your own peril. We're making it clear that once the constitutional deadline passes. Our constitution dictates that, not the People's Progressive Party. The Constitution of Ghana. In relation to Parliament, we will write the Speaker that we will not be attending any sitting of the Parliament, excepting for those that will give effect to Article 106.7 of the Constitution. Thank you.
Mr. Judge, Julia Johnson. You said 106.6 speaks about the resignation,
Yes.
but it is silent on the when. The President also has to dissolve Parliament, but the Constitution is also silent on the when. When exactly do you understand that these two things should happen? That's one. And you said you're not going to dwell on dual citizenship, but it is a concern having people, what the Constitution says, as against people who are appointed or selected, elected as members of Parliament.
Sure.
That should be a concern to you, given that we're leaving the law, the Constitution, which is the overriding factor in this country. And my fourth query to you.
You need to remind me. Why don't you
Yeah,
let
I'd like
me
to
deal
do
with
that.
these first, and then I'll give you a chance to continue.
Quick.
So the last one, not that I said that I will not dwell on it, but I think that has been already dealt with in the public domain, the legal issues surrounding that. What it will do to all the legislation passed before, not because if you invalidate his vote on this matter, then nothing would have been valid that he voted on before. So implications for all the budgets, etc. The legality of all the government actions. Two, I'm advised that there is a principle in law that you can't deal with these issues retroactively. And thirdly, that Article 165(2) of the Constitution provides for this, and I'd urge you to read Article 165(2) of the Constitution. That whenever, even if you have someone there who did not, at that moment, may not have had the in layman's language, who may not have been legally there at that time, it does not invalidate the proceeding. Does not invalidate the proceeding. So those issues are being dealt with in the public domain, and that's why I do not want to burden the press conference, because people are we're getting a bit repetitious and people are reading this over and over, but we can't stop repeating it because the other side continues with this lunacy and on television, etc., arguing about the arithmetic and everything else, and so and making these points. I think it's quite clear. That's one.
The resignation and the silence of the Constitution and that, and the President to dissolve Parliament and the silence also.
Okay, sure, but Article 106.6 says if you have a successful passage of the no confidence motion, which we had, the speaker ruled on it, and I was notified that it was passed. So it says the government shall, the cabinet, including the president, shall resign. Unambiguous. Unambiguous. Article 1067 speaks about selecting our candidates. Yesterday we met, we talked about our PR strategy, our campaign strategy. We're going to be rolling out because the Constitution says elections in 90 days. And so, I don't know, but if you work backwards from the outer limit, then that should give you an idea of when the dissolution should take place, etc.
Okay, my other two questions before we go further. You did say at the last press conference about GCOM's readiness will have to be discussed when you reach the president, whether or not, because I was asking, given your concerns of 2015 and those unresolved matters of GCOM, and now you're dealing with a protracted period for elections, and you did say that you were going to discuss this with the president, maybe one of the things you'll discuss with the president. Are you still of that mind, given what has happened since, and you're still calling for the resignation? I ask you this, given the president is not back as yet. Are you still going to use that? Are you going to...
That is why people think I'm just being too lenient with the government, that I'm awaiting the president's return. And in the meantime, rather than them using it to engage and talk about the future, because they can't have a series of engagement at different levels. Doesn't have to be at the presidential level, but at ministerial with their counterparts, shadows, etc. That we would have been working together to ensure that all the arrangements are in place. And so I have to really review whether just awaiting from the president, a meeting with the president, would really yield any results, because it seems as though his government has decided to take a more confrontational path now rather than respect the Constitution.
I just need a clarification before my colleagues could ask another question. There seems a precedent with the 1970 elections when Esther Pereira challenged the validity of those polls. I remember Garrett Singh, who was the judge at the time, invoked the doctrine of necessity when she said that those elections were null and void. She invoked the doctrine of necessity in order to cover those laws that were passed instead of going back with old gamut of taking them through the processes. What is your comment on that?
The thing is that different circumstances. At that time, there was no confidence vote passed. There was a challenge by election petition to the results of the election. And it took a while to hear the challenge. And when the judge ruled what you just said without repeating it, the vitiation of the elections and the validation of previous laws was part of the ruling. So totally different set of circumstances. Here we have a no confidence motion and the Constitution saying that the government must resign upon its passage and hold elections in 90 days. And it says further that should you have to extend the life of Parliament or National Assembly, you can only do so with 2/3 support from the National Assembly. That's unambiguous too. That's explicit. If the government needs to do that, they have to discuss that with us. Alternatively, it comes to an end on the 30th, the March the 19th. The life of the government expires, it goes into unconstitutional territory because elections are not held.
Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, Crawford, Patrons.
Yes, sure.
So you said that you made certain things clear to the international community. When you said this, I'm trying to understand what form your engagements took. Did you have meetings with the ABC representatives here how was this, how did you go about doing this? And secondly, there's a video circulating on Facebook with Mr. Broussard addressing a forum at Mandir, the Hindu place, Mandir, and him speaking fondly of the PPP, supporting the PPP. Is he now a valued member of the PPP? If not member, is he is a supporter? Is he likely to appear on the campaign? Third,
Yes.
what counter-course of action is available to the PPP in response to this?
I proposed it when we ended. I said, let's sit down and talk early. Let's talk this through. And not just about the conduct of these elections and how we engage here to respect the Constitution, but beyond that, what is good for Guyana and how we can work together for Guyana.
My question is in the context of them not going to election within 90 days, or then you still want to sit and talk? That's your
No, that they're squandering that opportunity now by these, and you must all agree with me, these lunatic-like statements.
No, so my question
no, but-
is, if
but-
they don't call election, what is available to the PPP to?
Well, first of all, it is how the country becomes inherently unstable. Inherently unstable. You don't have to go and bring people out on the street for the country to be unstable. If you have an illegitimate, unconstitutional, illegal government sitting in office that doesn't have the moral or the legal authority to conclude contracts or to engage with the international community, to function normally here, because the new government will review all of these and treat them as illegal and would have justification to do that. That is an inherently unstable country, totally unstable. And therefore, that's the consequence even before the PPP does anything, any action, takes any action. They would have made the country a pariah state, because we'd have that around the world. Every time they go to any meeting in the world, people would say, these guys are squatting in office. They should have been out of office now. And they can't represent us internationally. That is the big problem.
My final two questions have to do with one, that PPP's internal affairs. You had stated many times about giving a deadline for a year to list your presidential candidate. Today's the last day of the year.
Yes, I think we went past that a couple of days ago, so that's like...
Couple of days ago, the last thing you said is that
We'll continue to engage, and I said in the next 2-3 weeks. That's what I said at that time, when the group came outside of Freedom House and accosted me. When I came downstairs.
And there were a few forensic audit reports that weren't released. They said that they were keeping this for the police to use it for whatever purpose. So,
Really?
are you worried that the release of these reports during a campaign period could damage the PPP?
Oh no, we don't mind. We've been calling on them to release all of the reports. The forensic audit reports, we've been calling on them. They can release them yesterday. They could have released them yesterday, they can release them today, or they can release them tomorrow. It doesn't bother me. A lot of these reports were done by people who were on their list, and even with those reports, they could not find the large-scale corruption that they talk about. Look at what they charge people for. So I would find it a miraculous thing that they had this big scandal, and every day they were just sitting on it, waiting for 2020. It stretches the imagination. It stretches the imagination. People are not fools in now. You know, people, whether they're APNU or PPP supporters, or people are smart, they see a dying, desperate breed out there, cabal. And so I don't have any worry about these reports that they're releasing. No doubt they will get a bit more repressive.
Sir, another one thing maybe I missed it. But what I gathered from the Attorney General this morning is that they're going to ask the Speaker to review their decision and so forth. You're saying that he can't really speak and can't go back on that.
Yeah.
The next option, I think, is to move to the courts.
Yeah,
Once
but
the court-
just think it through. 32 voted against.
I hear what you're saying.
Right,
I hear
okay,
what you're
all
saying.
right,
But
okay.
once it take it to the court and the court rules in their favor, will the PPP abide by the court's ruling?
I'm not sure that the court will rule. Which court will rule overturn a constitutional issue of this nature? That is quite clear. And there are different layers to this. First of all, on a matter where you have a 3 months deadline and it's so explicit, any court in Guyana would have to respect that and hear these matters continuously. So this would not be a long drawn out matter. It would not be a long drawn, it should not be. I hope that the courts themselves don't try to, as Basil Williams said before, that he has some control over timelines, etc. in the court, to frustrate this, because they'll be complicit in this matter too, if they frustrate the constitutional deadline. So if a matter ends up in court, I don't see in the CCJ, like over a weekend, heard a matter that was affecting the elections in Barbados, before the elections. Over a weekend they did this. And we here can move through this process, I think, within a week or two. Within a week or two. Go through the stages if the courts treat it seriously. Whatever the outcome at the highest court, you'll have to live with.
Right in the evening news. You met with the diplomatic members from the ABC countries, diplomatic community last week.
Yes.
What other international organizations does PPP plan to meet? How far is the PPP willing to take its concerns?
We are setting up these meetings, but the letters should have gone out to several other organizations by now. Almost all the international groups outlining the situation in Guyana. We have gotten a couple of calls from the technical staff to the heads of these organizations, but I don't want to reveal who they are because they're doing research. They wanted to clarify a few things from us. So clearly people know about it already, and there's great interest in it internationally.
Mr. Jagger,
And this was widely reported in mainstream US media and that sort of thing.
Mr. Jagger, if I could come back to you. This morning there was a thought that former Attorney General Anil Nandan had gotten an opinion on the 34-vote majority. Could you say whether you're privy to that information and
He had gotten an opinion?
on the 34 majority while he was Attorney General in 2020? And I want to ask you, what are your views on the simple majority or absolute majority? Simple majority being 34, 33, 34 down.
Now clearly, I'm not a lawyer.
No,
I'm not a lawyer. But first of all, Anil Nandalal receiving a legal opinion in 2014 has no bearing on the current matter. No one argued that went to the parliament, pursued this issue, and then argued in the National Assembly that you need 34 to pass a no confidence motion. Clearly the PPP at that time understood that you needed 33 votes to pass the no confidence motion. It had 32 votes in the National Assembly, APNO and the AFC had 33 votes. Rather than face the no confidence motion, the People's Progressive Party, the former Ramatar, as president, prorogued the parliament and then went to early elections, recognizing that the motion that was brought by the APNO would have succeeded in the parliament. And so receiving legal opinions don't really matter too much. That is one issue. And
I was asking you about your views on simple majority.
it's an odd number. It says majority. It says a majority of the members. Let me read it again. Here. Every commonsensical person, the cabinet, including the president, shall resign if the government is defeated by the vote of a majority of all the elected members of the National Assembly on a vote of confidence. Now, there are several members of the National Assembly, but there are 65 voting members. 33 is a majority over 32. If you have 32, 33, the person with 33 gets the majority. That's for ordinary people. It doesn't say anywhere that a majority plus one in our constitution. But nothing of that sort. This is what has been the practice throughout the life of our parliament, throughout from its beginning. This was the understanding